How awesome would that be? Carrie, you have a question coming into you?
Yeah, there's a question here from Underdog in the chat room for you, Mark. Underdog would like to know, how long do you think it will take for Ubuntu to go mainstream on the desktop?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know, and I don't see us as being in a major battle for mainstreamness. What we're in is a battle to produce something wonderful that's easy to use, that's powerful, and that does its own things. In some parts of the world, we see Linux actually shipping on a significant percentage of the computers that ship. I think in China it's something like 30 to 40%. In India it's similar. And what's really interesting to me is that increasingly we see evidence that when those computers come back for repair, they still have Linux on them. And so a lot of people thought that Linux was really just a kind of a fig leaf for pirated Windows. But to my mind, it's clear. If we can deliver the functionality that people want, the web, Facebook, basic Office applications, and
Category
so on,
5.2,
then they'll live with it. They'll use it, and that's the story.
That's the great thing, is that we're stepping into this world where it's not just one operating system, and certainly Ubuntu has had a huge role in making desktop Linux something that's viable for an end user. I mean, I could give this to Grandma and she'd be able to use it. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the things that you should be very, very proud of with Ubuntu. Is the fact that it's so user-friendly and easy for somebody to get familiar with right out of the bat.
Well, I'll pass that on to the guys down the hall. They're the ones who deserve the credit.
Sure, yeah, do that. Now, just with you being on site at the Development Summit, is there something, we all want to know what is coming for Jaunty? What can we look forward to in the next release of the Ubuntu Desktop Linux operating system?
So on the desktop, my sort of interest now is on making things sort of really strikingly beautiful. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can elevate the desktop experience. Rather than playing catch up to the Mac and to Windows, let's really push the limits. We can break the rules to a certain extent. So we'll be doing quite a bit of work around the sort of desktop experience, notifications, how applications bring your attention to something that's not essentially critical. We'll be doing some work there, and starting to invest quite a lot in the launching and switching experience, how people find applications, how they run them. In the free software world, it's not necessary for us to be. We can blur the line between the operating system and the application and focus on what people want to get done. Because in a proprietary software world, you have different companies selling products. Effectively, each piece of software is a separate product. In the free software world, we can integrate all of those things together and just help users focus on what they want to get done. I want to write a letter, or I want to get onto Facebook,
right,
or I want to get onto Skype. And so we're trying to shift the emphasis to take advantage of that. And the first pieces of that will show up in Jaunty Jackalope.
So are we mainly talking about eye candy here, or are we actually talking about the interface itself and the way that the operating system functions?
Well, the tricky thing, then the interesting thing, is to try to pull together eye candy and productivity. Making something shiny doesn't help nearly as much as making something feel, a joy to use.
Yeah.
And so that's the key. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of new capabilities in the platform at the moment that are showing up as eye candy. 3D effects, OpenGL. But the question is how we can harness those things to actually make people more productive, and that's the real challenge for us.
Very cool. I know that the Compass Fusion Cube has been a big productivity booster for me, and not to mention it's saved a lot of desk space because I was able to actually get rid of my second monitor because I've got 4 sides to my cube, right? So that really helps me out. So. Any other questions?
Isn't it interesting how just giving a spatial awareness to those virtual desktops suddenly makes it a real thing?
Very much so.
Beforehand, it sort of felt abstract and strange.
And for those who think that the cube, for example, is just eye candy, it's really a productivity thing, because I've got basically, like, as far as my mind can fathom it, I've got like 4 computer screens, and I've got access to be able to flip them around and have different applications up on each screen. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with Jaunty as well.
There's a question here in the chat room from Braun, and Braun would like to know your thoughts on the relationship with Debian.
So Debian is our rock, effectively. For those who new to Linux, there are multiple different distributions, and often distributions sort of build off one another. So somebody will take an existing distribution and modify it and change it to enhance or focus attention on a specific area. And there's this amazing distribution called Debian. It's probably the broadest, biggest community in free software. And Ubuntu is very much based on Debian. So that makes it for a complex relationship because we do a tremendous amount of work. We've got very specific priorities. We get a tremendous amount of attention, and a lot of the good stuff that flows into Ubuntu has actually come from Debian. So that does create something of a complex relationship, right? But we work hard on that relationship, and increasingly I'm seeing some signs from the Debian community that they're actually appreciative and insightful as to what we bring to that relationship. So it's a very symbiotic relationship from my perspective.
Oh, I see.
I wouldn't want to build Ubuntu any other way than kind of in partnership with Debian. And increasingly, I think there are Debian guys who are willing to stand up and say that Ubuntu's existence has been really good for Debian too.
And so Ubuntu is giving back to the Debian community as well.
We did a quick sort of trawl through the Debian tracker, and there was something like 3,000 bugs that have been conversations with between Ubuntu and Debian developers for the latest Debian release, and something like 500 of them had patches that had been accepted and landed. So it's a not insignificant contribution to Debian, and I think gradually people are becoming aware of that.
That's good to hear. Are there any final questions in the chat room before we move on, or do you have any questions, Carrie, for Mark?
I think that was it for the chat room. No, I think that pretty much answers all the questions that I came to the interview with. Thank you so much, Mark. It was definitely informative, and I know all the viewers certainly appreciate your idea of philanthropy and how you just want to help everyone out. It's really appreciated.
Definitely.
Well, if we can bring together amazing technology, amazing sort of social processes, and an interesting new business model, I think that's a win. So thank you very much, guys. It was nice to meet you.
Mark, thank you very much for being on Category 5 TV. Take care.
Stay well.